Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Backlot Banter. My name is Tucker Hazel, and today I am joined by my co-host, who everyone still social distances from, Tanner Dykstra. And today we're here to talk about Eddington. Tanner, it is the COVID Western movie of our generation.
Wow, wowie
At
zowie.
least at the top of the
Every
pile.
generation gets one.
Every generation gets one. We're here to talk about the new film Eddington from Ari Aster. It's got Joaquin Phoenix in it. It's got Emma Stone in it. It's got Pedro Pascal in it. And we're gonna give you
Yeah.
our deep, in-depth thoughts here on this movie that's got a
Yeah.
lot going on. And
Oh
so
yeah.
subscribe and like and comment and join the Discord. But Tanner, Eddington
Mm-hmm.
has arrived. We have seen it, and I
Yes.
want to know your thoughts on the film.
So Tucker, I was obviously introduced as many words to this film as like the most divisive film of the year, in all of this stuff. Ari Aster has done it again, and he has, he's
He's
sticking
pissing
a,
people
a, a
off left
hot
and right.
He's pissing people off left and right. He's sticking a hot poker into the political discourse that was the year of 2020. So I really didn't know what to expect from this a whole lot. The trailer seemed pretty promising to me, but Tucker, let me come out and say it right here. I really like Eddington. I think it's kind of a great film. I don't know. We can talk about like how deeply it delves into like the American psychosis from 5 years ago that has sort of extended out and warped and evolved into
Sure.
the current American culture, American political discourse. But this movie is, as are many of Ari Aster's films, really funny. Probably his funniest movie. There's a
Nah,
dark,
Beau's
twisted
Afraid.
sense of humor
Nah.
to all of his films.
Beau's Afraid is way
Um,
sillier.
yeah, but this one, this one is a satire, of course. I'm not
Yeah,
breaking any new ground by saying that.
yeah.
I'll say that. But like the performances are great. It has a lot of, if you can believe it, a lot of unexpected things in it. It really takes you on a ride because this
Definitely.
thing's like 2.5 hours long,
Yeah, yeah.
and there's just a certain point where it kicks into a gear that you didn't know it was going to have in
Totally.
it. That's really, really entertaining.
Yeah, this movie has three very distinct acts and sections in it, which I think are really interesting, and I enjoy each of them to differing levels. At the end of the day, I like Eddington. I think it is a well-made movie. It is
Hmm.
artistically very bold. It is covering a topic from a unique angle that I think should be covered. And like to me, like when I think about what the premise of Eddington is, which is utilizing uh, the tension of the COVID era, the
Hmm.
it's specifically set in May 2020,
Right.
uh, to and using Western tropes to kind of combine the two. I'm like, that is clever. It is a match made in heaven, and it leads to some very, very fun satirical moments that I really, really love,
Hmm.
particularly in that first act. I end up not loving Eddington though, because I do think
Okay.
that it feels like three different movies. There's this
I see.
first act that's much more Western. You've got this middle chunk that's a lot more political, and then you actually have like a thriller action last 40 minutes of the
Yeah.
movie. And they work to different levels. My ranking would be first act very strong, third
Mm.
act surprisingly very good, second act I
Hmm.
think overstuffed, a little complicated, too many
Okay.
buzzwords for my taste, which I definitely want to get into. This movie is very broad, and Tanner, I don't know if how well this will strike you, but to me it
Mm.
feels like the criticism that people had of Don't Look Up, which is that movie was trying to point fingers in every direction and covered as many topics and general
Sure.
cultural things it could. And I do feel like Eddington
Uh-huh.
ultimately ends up in a similar camp. I like both the movies, so I'm not saying it's necessarily
Hmm.
a bad thing, but I do think it's a detriment to this movie when I think with a little more focus and a little less trying to cover literally everything that happened in the American culture in 2020, we could have
Hmm.
dived a little bit deeper into the elements that I think are a little bit more clever with this movie rather than kind of just like spotlight, here it is, don't you remember that this happened?
Yeah, yeah, I can see where you're coming from. I guess I just didn't feel this film being like too spread out, I guess. I think it I think it tackles the broader ideas that it's going for by using them, focusing them through the characters, basically.
Yeah,
I've heard Ari Aster in some interview clips talk about this, where he's like, broadly speaking, all of the characters like have their worldview, they live in different realities, and they feel that something is wrong with the world, but because of their different, you know, their different priors, basically,
Yeah.
the sources that they are starting from, they go through different avenues to craft the world or change the world in ways they see fit, or advocate for the world in which they think everyone would be better off.
Yeah.
Which is kind of where we are, ultimately, as a country. And I think he very deftly, picks out this moment in recent American history as the point where it all kind of started, or at least, intensified to the point where, like, we can't put the genie back in the bottle.
Yeah.
But all that is to say that I think that it sort of starts core to the characters and then spins out in a really dazzling fashion, I would say.
Mm.
Because what you have here is Joaquin Phoenix, who plays,
Joe
hang
Cross.
on. Thank you, Joker. I was looking at the letterbox page for Guy Ritchie for previous reasons. Don't worry about that. Yes, he plays Joe Cross, who is the sheriff of Eddington, New
Yeah.
Mexico. I mean, and I mean, in classic Ari Aster fashion, he is able to sort of impart to you what this character is very quickly.
Yeah,
I
totally.
mean, he is introduced to us watching a video about how to convince your spouse that you want to have a child, and when we pan over and we see his spouse is Emma Stone, and then you get the confrontation with the Pueblo sort of police officers
Yeah.
about wearing a mask in their city limits or whatever. Um, and you get a really solid idea of who this guy is. He is quite emasculated, I would say. I think that's a
Yeah.
core
Hmm.
theme of this film and Joe's character. He feels, powerless at home and in the world at
Yeah.
large, and
Which
that
is
is why he
interesting
tries
given
to
his
take
role as a
things.
sheriff. And
Exactly. Yes.
frankly, as a leader in some way in the community,
Hmm.
it puts him in this fascinating position that I think makes him a really compelling character, where he's likable to a degree because you understand where his confusion and frustration comes from. He's not a particularly smart guy. He's got some drive, but
Yeah.
not too much. He's got this history and these you know problems with his wife and problems with the
Hmm.
mayor Ted Garcia, played by Pedro Pascal, and his
Yep.
overbearing, a very conspiratorial not stepmother, mother-in-law.
Yep.
And so like you understand in this situation how someone could feel kind of small and like try to push back against things
Hmm.
and then overstep. And then the movie kind of plays with this, for me at least, played with this idea of how much should you like this guy? How much should you
Hmm.
empathize with him? Because the movie then plays with different angles of his political beliefs and the ways that he treats other people because of a shared or not shared political belief. And then, of course, spinning to the last act, which we won't talk about until later,
Hmm.
his more severe actions that definitely challenge you as a viewer and your empathy with this guy.
Hmm.
But that is, I think that's the element of this movie that really takes you on a ride. Is you're with this guy that, for the two of us who are pretty similar in our political and
Hmm.
our worldview, and our current experience with culture, he's
Uh-huh.
not someone that at face value I feel we should empathize with, or would if we were just like given the bullet points list of who this guy is. But I do think the movie actually does
Hmm.
a pretty good job of introducing his scenario and the reasons why he has the strengths and struggles that he does have.
Yeah, but I mean, what I like about the character is that he is not like outwardly abrasive in the ways that other characters in this film are. He is not shouting conspiracy
No,
theories from the
yeah,
top of his lungs. He sort of co-opts those sort of proclivities in his community to
yeah.
try and bolster his own mayoral campaign.
Yeah, and he
But
probably
like,
believes in a good chunk of them, but he's not super
of
outward about
course,
it.
but I think Ari Aster is more concerned with in making the audience buy into how pathetic this guy is, because
Hmm.
I think that's something that he is trying to really drill into as like, yeah, like these are the guys who are now driving the MAGA movement now.
Hmm.
Are these guys who 5-ish years ago were like pathetic, powerless, felt like the world was moving on without them, felt like they couldn't get
Mhm.
a handle on anything. They're older guys, obviously, and the regime, the political movement in the United States gave them an opportunity to try and grab those reins again, and that is what Joaquin Phoenix tries to do here,
Yeah.
but in a very Coen's fashion. This is a
Yeah.
very Coen Brothers
I
movie
agree.
to
Yeah.
me, especially the second act when it becomes like bumbling criminality stuff. He is
True.
just like sort of inept at really taking that action onto himself,
Yeah.
and by the third act, sort of gets caught up in a broader wave of like the powers that be, the powers that the mysterious deep state or whatever the fuck
Yeah.
in the crazy third
Yeah.
act of
Yeah,
this
we'll talk
movie.
about that.
Um, yeah, really just like sweeps him away and locks him down to a point of like true powerlessness.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's start with this movie starts in that first act that is very much more the introduction to the world, and I think this first part much more playing with Western tropes. It's a lot slower than the second and third acts are,
Hmm.
and that's my favorite part of the movie. I remember feeling at the beginning, we're getting a lot of social distancing stuff, a lot of masking culture stuff. And I'm like, this feels pretty on the
Hmm.
nose. Like I don't know quite how I feel about this,
It's kind of
but
perfunctory,
yeah.
yeah.
But what's interesting is that it feeling kind of awkward and feeling it's kind of on the nose. I think to me points out why I find this film so interesting as a time capsule. Is you might
Hmm.
at face value feel like not a lot of time has passed since this. Has it really been long enough for us to reflect on that time period with a substantial enough distance to like hindsight be able to understand what happened? And I actually
Hmm.
do think that even though we might think not a lot has changed, this movie does show me that, yeah, I mean, experientially it's a whole nother world because getting
Absolutely, it feels
set
like a
back,
lifetime ago.
yeah, getting set back into the especially early pandemic culture of
Hmm.
lining up at stores and really aggressive masking culture and conspiracies, which of course still persist, but were very heavy
Hmm.
because the confusion about origins of the coronavirus and the communication, everyone being shut down, and which level of government is enforcing what. It ends up
Hmm.
creating this really surreal, but in reality, very real. This actually did happen, and this
Yeah.
confusion and this tension and this stuff that feels otherworldly now was something that was very. I mean, it happened to all of us to a certain degree. Not allowed to leave your house. Who can you see? How far apart do you have to be from them? That I felt was a really good encapsulation of this eerie tone, and the way that is balanced with the Western tropes, I just thought was
Hmm.
really, really excellent. Specifically, the town of Eddington being a ghost town
Hmm.
because everyone's indoors and they're not driving around the streets like you would usually see.
Hmm.
Gives this movie just a totally excellent tone for that first act. I mean, I loved seeing just like a modern ghost town, but it makes sense within the context of what's actually happening.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I'm the first one. I think that Ari Aster himself said this, but like it's a Western, but instead of six shooters, they have iPhones or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
And they have their little showdown in the middle of town after Joe announces that he's going to be running for
Yeah.
mayor of
Yeah,
Eddington.
yeah. It's
And
like a
that's really
Mexican standoff, but they have to be social distance, and that's why they're so far
they have to be
apart.
social
I'm like,
distanced.
that's fucking great. That's good. And then
Mhm.
a receipt tumbleweed kind of goes by in the background. I'm like, Ari Aster,
Yeah,
you're a
yeah,
fucking
yeah, yeah.
genius.
Yeah. I mean, and that's great stuff. And then there's all these sort of like the comedic elements of Joe goes back to the police precinct and he's like, don't worry about any of like the typical policing stuff. This is now my campaign office, and he's writing down slogan ideas on the whiteboard, and like the number one idea that because he has like two deputies. There's one named Guy and there's one named Michael.
Hmm.
Guy writes down the slogan ideas, and like the first one is like "Come and take it" or whatever. Like there's all this stuff in there. In the so we should also talk about the Joe's home life, I guess. Now that we've talked about like the political tensions that are inherent to the film, because they do weave together. At home, he has his wife Emma Stone, whose
Louise,
character's name is Tucker. Here we go.
Louise Cross.
Louise, and Deirdre O'Connell, who plays Emma Stone's character's mother, whose name is Dawn.
Okay.
As you already mentioned, she is the one that is just rambling to herself all day about, conspiracy theories and have you read this thing online? You gotta watch this YouTube video
Yeah.
about this or whatever. But Emma Stone is taking on a very different sort of tone to her performance. She is a lot quieter, a lot more reserved. She doesn't like that her mother is living with them, of course, because there is some sort of latent trauma that she is trying to overcome through doing this artwork, that we come to, understand more throughout the film, is that she was at a young age, at 16, 17, something
Yeah,
like
16
that.
is what they said.
Um,
15.
she was sexually assaulted, statutory rape, whatever you want to call it, whatever the film settles on, by perhaps Ted Garcia, Pedro Pascal's character, who was older than her, who was an adult at the time, or perhaps, and this is sort of spoilers, I guess, would you say, Tucker? Perhaps like her father was doing this stuff to her, and that becomes a sort of tension unto itself, a story unto itself that drives her away. But all of this is a really like a strange hotbed of tension that Joaquin Phoenix goes into at home as well.
Yeah.
Sort of feeding into his powerlessness, because he's like, he doesn't know how to help his wife. He wants to start a family. He doesn't like that the
Yeah.
mother-in-law is living with them and all this stuff.
Yeah. But this first chunk, that when we're introduced to all this stuff, you're right. It's a hotbed, but it's a hotbed that, again, I think, to the point I was making earlier, does help you empathize with this guy, because you can see that he's really trying to reach his wife and trying to support her and trying to understand her and make sure that their life is comfortable together. And you can understand why he'd be frustrated but still have to put up with the fact that his mother-in-law is living with them. Like, this is a very believable situation. I do feel like in the second act of the movie, it takes this believable situation and builds a lot of different things on it that make it a little bit more fantastical. The second act definitely like infuses so many different political perspectives and beliefs and concepts, that I do think it made me. I feel like this movie distracts itself in its second act from what I thought was so strong in the first act, which is the home life that again makes me empathize with Joe, and then the rivalry, I guess, between Ted and Joe, which I think is really well established in that first act. That first act is when we get the most Ted Garcia. We get him doing his more political campaign stuff. He's doing some interviews where we're learning like what his role is as mayor. He's also a part of this trying to get an AI data center set up in the middle of the desert. That's called Solid Gold Magikarp. Is Magikarp not trademarked? Does Nintendo know about Eddington? Probably. Just interesting things to think about. But I really, really do love this first act. I think the world it establishes, the unique tone, the way that it recaptures COVID era stuff. I really specifically loved the scene of him at the grocery store and the way that handled. Not that like, okay, I want things to have happened that way, or I like that there's this tension, but like, given the world that's set up there, a very believable conflict and conversation to have. The older guy who says I can't breathe in the mask, and then like everyone clapping and filming things because it's a very like social media heavy movie as well.
Of course,
everyone being social distanced. I thought this whole first act until Joe starts to go off the rails with his campaigning. I thought was really, really, really excellent. Like some of the strongest stuff I've seen this year.
So what would you say that the off the rails campaigning stuff? What would you highlight as like those moments? If we could move forward in the narrative here,
I think it's when we start getting maybe it's not the campaign, but I think it's when we start getting introduced to more of the B plots of this movie, of which there are a number, particularly Ted Garcia's son, his relationship to other youth of Eddington, his friend Brian, and then also Louise's dynamic with Austin Butler. Um,
Yes.
who
Whose
I
name is Vincent,
yeah
I think. He's got
mm,
like a three-name thing
yeah,
going on.
but what
Vernon,
Vernon.
sorry.
When we're introduced to these other storylines, and then we start building up
Uh-huh.
all of this more. I just Tanner, I described it yesterday to Abram as the Forrest Gump of 2020. We're like, we gotta hit the
Mm.
beats. You guys remember when this happened? This is
Mm-hmm.
as time was progressing, like all this stuff.
Sure.
We gotta hit the buzzwords of the time. That second
Mm-hmm.
act, as I mentioned earlier, feels really overstuffed to me and
Okay.
unfocused. And I think it, as I mentioned, loses focus on the elements that I feel are so strong at the beginning because Ted Garcia is basically entirely gone for this second act. And also
Well,
Louise is also almost entirely gone
mhm.
for the second act.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it's because, well, I think you and I have differing points of when like the second
Sure,
act
yeah, that's possible.
starts. I think,
Hmm.
because I would say, and this is full spoilers for Eddington, because I would argue this is the most shocking moment in the entire film, probably my favorite moment in the entire film, is when Joaquin Phoenix takes matters into his own hands and assassinates Ted Garcia
Hmm.
and his son from like a
Uh,
hill outside their house.
uh, I would say that's the third act.
See, I would say the third act sort of spins out from when we really get bug nuts. I mean, maybe that's not long enough of a time, but like there's so much packed into
Hmm.
that. But you know, maybe this thing doesn't have like a third act structure unto itself
No, yeah.
either.
To me, it's introduction up to him deciding to go for mayor, and maybe a little bit
Sure.
after that, and then when he's
Mm-hmm.
fully in, I am running for mayor mode, uh,
Mm-hmm.
and then when he snipes him, that's the start of like the last chunk of the movie in my mind.
Okay, because I'm thinking of the sections as like the the more perfunctory, but I think we agree still very good like COVID parody
Yeah,
satire stuff, which includes him running for mayor and running on a platform of like you're being manipulated. Ted Garcia's in the pocket of big AI,
yeah,
big solid
yeah,
gold magic harp or whatever. We gotta free each other's hearts, all this stuff. And then we have the him trying to cover up the murder. I think that's really
oh
like the
sure,
bumbling criminality stuff,
yeah,
like that section. And then the as many people have pointed out, the Conor O'Malley pipe rock theory section of the film,
sure,
where it's just like totally fabricated fantasy stuff, deep state
yeah,
conspiracy, but in reality, like that stuff it becomes the
yeah.
experience of the characters.
That's a good point. In my mind, I would call that Act 3A and 3B. Uh,
Fair enough.
Murder until it becomes just like a straight up action movie. Like things start
Yeah,
blowing
exactly.
up.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, so can we talk about the middle chunk before the murder
Sure.
happens?
Yeah.
Which is when this is the most political chunk of the movie.
Yeah.
It is very much about the tensions that have been simmering
Mm-hmm.
of different political perspectives and like a lot of like latent political perspectives about white guilt and
Yes.
white guilt, like American
I mean
guilt
the
for being on stolen land of the indigenous people,
uh-huh.
and racism and riots slash protests going on in the
In
background.
the world of the film,
Yeah,
much like ours, the George Floyd
yeah,
murder happens around this time, and the protests come to Eddington, much to like the panic of Guy, especially.
yeah,
He's like, "They're coming here! It's happening! They're breaking shit! They're burning shit down! Oh my
yeah,
god!" And then it's like 25 people in the street or whatever.
yeah. Well, that's an Eddington protest.
Exactly.
Yeah. So this section is interesting because I do think it builds in a decent way where we're
Okay.
introduced to the political tensions of the youths as they are hanging out, social distanced out in the middle of fucking nowhere, talk
Yeah.
very much like performatively talking about their political beliefs
Yes.
and their perspectives and trying
Yes.
to like be like, oh, I'm on your side with this, and like maybe fibbing a little bit about that.
They're effectively both trying to get the girl
Yeah,
with this stuff. I mean, that's the tension of this the teen section of this film
yeah.
is that they
And the
are
teen subplot.
both these boys are like adopting well, one of them more is like trying to like adopt the social justice mindset to like date a young girl who's
Yeah.
also in town who's really like who's really on top of this stuff.
Hmm.
And she also has a history with Michael, who's one of the deputies under Joe,
Or
of
does
course.
she? Hard to tell.
Yeah, but I mean, they say that at the beginning that
Yeah,
like
but
she
then
used to date.
when they're talking to Michael, he's like, I never even really seen her.
I no, but they say like she used to date Michael, but then they broke up because he became a cop.
Yeah, I do remember that. But then, so I guess maybe, and maybe this is like another point of Eddington is every character is lying and changing their perspective to protect themselves in any given situation. Because there definitely is a section later on when they hear from Brian that Michael might have been the one to do the murder, and they interrogate him. They talk to him about this. They see the pictures, and he's like, "I don't even really know who this is. Like, I haven't really talked to her. Like, I think she might have been like." He might be lying there, or maybe they were
Could
lying
be,
earlier.
yeah.
It's very hard to
Right,
tell.
you're
It's
right.
not thoroughly explored, but to the point of confusion and miscommunication and lying to cover your own tracks, anyone in any of these situations could be coming up with this stuff,
Yeah,
which is interesting.
so there's that plot line, and I think there's a lot of really good comedy in that subplot.
Mm.
I mean, it starts off great with him like Googling Angela Davis and
Yeah,
getting
yeah,
a quick fact about her, so he can like go talk to the girl about Angela Davis.
Oh, I love that book.
And I think this is
What?
oh yeah.
I love that book. God damn
You
it!
know, she won this award in like 2017 or whatever. It's good. It's good. But I think this is also part of the reason why people who criticize this movie say like, oh, it's both siding these things, it's
Yeah.
making false equivalencies, all this stuff. You know, it's and criticism of that nature. But to me, I think there is a difference between both siding something, trying to have a centrist point of view, which the people who are more critical of Eddington say
Yeah.
say Ari Aster is having, versus being able to point out and laugh at everybody. I would say like
Mm.
the inherent comedy in
Yeah.
the right wing conspiracy things, and then the liberal performative action
Yeah.
things, which I
Totally.
think again in hindsight we can all say was a strong factor back in 2020. You know,
Yeah.
they do a scroll through the black squares
Of
on
course. Yeah.
Instagram,
Yeah.
for example. Not to say that all that action was performative, of course, but like we are meant to understand that for at least these two boys, these two young boys, one is Ted Garcia's son and the other is sort of just another boy in the community, like ultimately it is kind of performative for
No,
them
definitely.
because they both want to sleep with the girl.
Yeah, yeah. And what's interesting about the political tensions that this middle chunk of the movie establishes, and the reason why I don't think the movie as a whole, it feels like it's taking a centrist position. Ultimately,
Hmm.
Joe Cross and his political leans and the conspiracies that he ends up believing in, the lies that he spreads, and his anti-masking and like
Yeah.
not belief in like COVID's potential dangers definitely
Hmm.
leans, and the fact that he ends up becoming an assassin, a murderer,
Hmm.
definitely skews towards the people that took his perspective were in the wrong
Yeah.
in this time. But my problem with the movie, with this middle chunk,
Okay.
which as I mentioned is my least favorite part of the movie, is that
Hmm.
it's not centrist, but it makes everyone annoying to the point where I found like I couldn't tell who, especially in this middle chunk of the movie, was supposed to be the bad guy, or the people that I was supposed to empathize or not empathize with, because every perspective is painted as super performative and annoying and ill-informed, and like you're just looking up the
Hmm.
bullet points to try to like get one up on someone or read through like half an article and be like, oh yeah, I'm a master
Hmm.
at this. And this is where I feel the movie's overstuffed, is it's trying to
Okay.
bring in every fucking political perspective and cultural concept of 2020 into like a 35-minute chunk of the film. As I realized all this was happening, I started writing down all the
Hmm.
things that this movie, in some
Okay.
level, tries to cover. And not all of these are
Okay.
dived into super deeply, but they are all definitely present in the film.
Okay.
Bitcoin, AI learning,
Yes.
false sexual allegations,
Yep.
BLM,
Hmm.
police violence,
Hmm.
anti-racism, mass culture, conspiracies, riots/protests, stolen land, white guilt. Like
Uh-huh.
this is like a who's who of every possible fucking thing you could cover in this period of time. And I felt like
Sure.
let's cut like 6 of these and focus in
No,
on the ones
but
that are like more important for the actual plot and film.
I think for me, it's that all these things they all ricochet into one another.
Yeah,
Like
I know. Yeah.
you're talking about a Venn diagram that has a lot of overlap
Hmm.
within all of these things. And I think it also speaks to like the social media, the cultural mind
Yeah.
share that was like trying to 2020 was a very pivotal time for a lot of cultural movements,
Yeah.
and a lot of these things were on everybody's minds, and whether they were trying to adopt them and like learn and be better, or push back against them and be, and you have to hate all of these, you have to hate all those talking points, you have to rebut all of them and say that they're all woke and they're all deep
Yeah.
state
Yeah.
or whatever. Like I think that is that's the core of the film for me, is that it all became the malaise that was the cultural shifts of 2020.
Yeah, I agree that that is true on like a larger sense of like
Mhm,
all of these impact each other in some way.
mhm,
Um, Ultimately, my problem is that because each one is touched on in some way, but not super deeply delved into, because there's just too much going on in this moment of the movie
mhm.
to like explore any particular topic. I ended up kind of just rolling my eyes a lot and being like, "Yeah, okay,
Sure.
you're right, Ari. That did happen in 2020. Good job." And that so it made me feel, as I was saying, like everyone's annoying. This is all really confused and
Yeah.
obnoxious, and I understand that as an intent, but it ended up missing the mark for me, where I felt like the movie was confused on what perspective it was taking, and that the any plot line, no plot line was delved into deep enough where I'm like, this section of the movie is an exploration of it, much to the point that I was making about Don't Look Up. It feels like
Mm.
it's trying to explore everything and not getting deeply into any of the topics that it's trying to cover.
Yeah, I guess for me, it comes down to that Ari Aster is not trying to make a movie about like, all right, let's investigate like the white guilt stuff.
Sure,
What
yeah,
he's doing is like that was, I mean, he's twisting it with his sense of humor, being like, I can make jokes about
yeah,
that are very funny. I mean, the continued like hoop jumping that people have to do, and like backing over their words, being like, and I shouldn't even be saying this because I'm a white person and this is stolen land, and
yeah,
I'm saying this to a black cop or whatever. Like the hoops that we have to jump through, like, were funny, and
yeah. I agree.
serve to undermine the points that were at the core of these belief
Yeah,
systems.
yeah.
But we felt that people felt as though you needed to make them because everyone was talking about them.
Hmm.
To me, that is more what Aster is going for here. And to the point of the Don't Look Up thing, my thing with that has always been that Don't Look Up feels like it's coming from an Adam McKay holier than thou situation,
Sure.
whereas Eddington is kind of like, listen, we were all in it,
Yeah,
he's coming at this. I mean, the tagline of the movie is "Hindsight is
yeah. I
2020,"
love that.
which is
Oh
pretty
my
clever
god.
unto itself.
Yeah,
But he's coming at it with hindsight. He's like,
yeah. Of
to
course,
some
absolutely.
degree, you can see other people in this, but also Eddington is sort of a mirror for everyone sitting in that theater.
Yeah, yeah, totally, totally. Because in some way, again, it tries to cover every, not every perspective, but the majority of the
Mhm.
perspectives, majority of the widely held perspectives that
The
were being
loudest perspectives that everyone was
exactly,
hearing from all the time in 2020.
exactly. And so political stuff on that side, the real world reflective
Mm.
political stuff, talked about. Good job. Wrap it up. Put it with a bow. Add it to the
Uh-huh.
pile. What
Send it
about
off.
the Joe Cross's political campaign chunk of this movie?
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
I think this is where the best comedy of the movie is.
Okay.
In watching
Uh
him spiral so quickly into the most aggressive political campaign run by three guys that ever, and his super loud and boisterous
yes.
sets of billboards and yard signs and
Hmm.
stickers, and just every fucking slogan that you could possibly come up with printed
Hmm.
in big block letters and plastered onto the sides of buildings, and him in his dumb car with the megaphone talking to no one,
Yes.
and like just getting these two, like he turns the police force into his own mini campaign. Like
He
that is, I
does.
think,
He does.
inherently very funny. It's so
Hmm.
ridiculous and over the top and like colorful, that I think it's just a really hilarious part of the film.
Yeah, absolutely. Which is why I still like group this into like the satire side, the satire part of this
Yeah.
movie. But you're totally right. I mean, our good friend of the show, Joe Wright,
Yeah.
said that you could basically pause. He wants to wait. He wants to see this movie when it comes out on VOD again, so he can pause and like read people's shirts and
Yeah.
read
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
signs and read all the slogans plastered on the SUV and things like
Yeah.
that. Like the stuff is deep in this, and there is a lot of jokes, and they are layered, and they're blink and you miss it literally because
Totally.
you can just pass by a great one. Like on the driver's side door of the SUV is "Don't let Eddington, New Mexico become Facebook, New Mexico," which
What
is
does it
so.
mean? That's so stupid.
What is that?
And then there's
It's
like,
so good.
get this virus out of Eddington is a picture of Pedro Pascal.
Yeah, and like the top thing is a picture of like Bill Gates,
Yeah.
and then it's Bill Gates, Pedro Pascal, and somebody else. Who's the
Maybe
third
it's
person?
Fauci. Uh,
It might be It's something like that.
yeah.
Yeah. No, I think it's the guy who like is funding the Garcia campaign, like the
Oh, yeah,
town
yeah, yeah.
like funds manager or
I
economic
don't know. He looks like
manager
an
or
oil
whatever.
baron
His
of some
pictures.
kind.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. He's definitely like the shadier part. He is the puppeteer behind Garcia, as we're meant to
Yeah.
understand.
Yeah. And to that point about Joe was saying, I had the exact same kind of thoughts where I'm like, I really can't
Hmm.
wait for this movie to have some really high quality stills that I can go and
Yeah.
because in the moment I was very much appreciating. I think one of this movie's biggest strong suits is the production design, and not
Oh
necessarily.
yeah.
I mean, the production design of like dry streets and we're out in we're out in the brush or whatever is very very good. But where this movie truly excels is in headlines and social media posts and browser tabs that people have open and billboards
Hmm.
and weathered logos in the background that are like Eddington gun store, whatever. Like the amount of
Yeah.
attention to detail that makes this place feel believable and that what these characters are engaging with, especially on social media and apps and websites, which is really hard to do. Well, I guess it's not that hard to do. Everyone can make a fucking website, but like the fact that they went to that level to make this a believable, time accurate, but also internally coherent world for these characters to exist in is like an above and beyond kind of thing. I was really, really appreciative of all these slogans and all of these posters and everything that they did to make Eddington feel the way it did.
Sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I was just looking because we were looking last night, no, on Thursday night when we saw it,
Yeah,
who the set decorator, the production design was. It seems like the lead person was Adam Willis, who's the production designer for like major films like Oppenheimer and Killers of the Flower Moon,
oh cool.
which is also pretty funny
Yeah,
that those skills can translate to doing stuff like
yeah,
this.
yeah,
You know.
it's cool. Well, let's talk about the last act of this movie.
Sure.
Where it turns into
I
like
want to
a.
start.
Oh, sorry. Oh, well, we still got to do. You're
I
right.
was
The bumbling section, right?
so what happens then is that so there's things that unfold and we don't need to do a whole plot synopsis, but like Emma Stone leaves Joaquin
Yeah,
Phoenix, and I like that sequence a lot. I think Emma Stone does a lot wordlessly in that sequence with
yeah.
her performance. That's really really good.
She leaves
um
him because
yeah.
he goes on video and tells this story that
Yes.
he's coming up with ostensibly on the spot. He feels like
Mhm.
this is what's true. That Ted
Yes.
Garcia is a. I love the.
Hmm.
I love the. Rapist. That's the word I was saying. But I love what the.
Yeah.
I love the way this movie plays in the performances and the dialogue of having people
Hmm.
feel weird about saying certain words and like
Yeah.
half saying
Yeah.
them, like half whispering them, whatever. I'm like, people don't
Especially
usually do that in
Joaquin.
movies. Like
Uh-huh.
playing into the like you want to say it, but like which version of the
Hmm.
word do you say? Like playing it kind of both sides in that moment. Like
Which I think is perfect for Joaquin in his
yeah,
performance
yeah,
style for playing like the who's supposed to be in the Western, like the rough and tough lawman who has to stand in front of a ring light and an iPhone and like give a political speech now.
yeah,
It's so perfect.
yeah.
It's so perfect for him. But she leaves, and this is sort of like the final straw for
Joe,
Joe.
yeah,
So what he does is that he goes out and first he kills the homeless man that is sort of opens up the
yeah.
film that is present in a lot of
And he's
the
the
larger
COVID
public settings of
carrier
the film.
apparently.
He's the That's right.
Yeah,
He's the guy that brings COVID to Eddington. So he kills him, and then he resolves to go ahead and just from a distance, from a sniper perch, kill Pedro Pascal, Ted Garcia, and his son.
yeah,
Um, in what is a really, really well done sequence.
Yeah.
I mean, when you absolutely, first of all, do not see it coming.
No.
It got a big reaction in
Yeah.
my theater. When you, and then you see it, like, you just see the little flash of light like in the distance, which is really, really great. And then like somebody's torso just explodes or whatever.
Well, no,
Um,
it's pretty subtle. The Ted is in his chair. It goes through the
yeah.
chair into out of his chest and into the wall.
Hmm.
And his son's like, it's very quiet. It's very quick. It's very quiet.
Yeah, exactly.
And
Yeah.
his son's like, Dad, what happened? And he sees him,
Hmm.
and then there's this like whole thing of like him like diving and like falling through the glass and like being
Yep.
splayed
Yep.
out on the ground,
Hmm.
like Peter Griffin. And
Yeah.
it's
Exactly.
it's a good sequence because of how subtle it is. It's not
Hmm.
loud. It's not high energy. This is
It's
a very
very. I'm
detached.
not. Yeah, I'm not the first one to make this comparison, of course, but again, going to the Coen Brothers thing, it's very No Country for Old Men,
Oh, of
and how
course.
that
Yeah.
film presents its violence. Um, and yeah, because we get set up obviously earlier that Joaquin Phoenix is like the best shot in the police precinct or whatever. And then yeah, so he has to cover all this up, and he's okay at it, but he's not necessarily the best. But he is benefited by being the sheriff of this town, and he has an inherent level of respectability amongst his community that people wouldn't
Yeah.
believe that he would do this thing,
Well,
or
not
that
only
he would
that,
be.
but he has no one above him. He has no one
True,
to
true.
put pressure on him, especially now that Ted
Hmm.
is also dead.
He's
And
the boss.
people
Yeah.
are trying to figure out what's going on here, and also his police force is so limited that, I mean, and that's another one of the biggest, most inherent comedic elements of this film is trying
Hmm.
like. It's a small town, but 3 guys are not enough for everything that happens.
Three
in this
guys is
movie.
not enough.
3 guys are not enough to handle any size town in terms of like making sure that everyone's okay. Because this is also, it does feel very small town in that everyone like just goes up to him. He's very personable. He buys groceries for a guy, because there's just not a lot of people to like get confused about. Everyone can know each other,
Hmm.
but the fact that he doesn't have anyone above him means like he feels like he can get away with anything, because
Yeah.
his subordinates, his deputies, have to follow his orders, and
Yeah.
everyone else, get to your point, because he's a trusted guy and he's running for mayor and all this stuff, and again,
Hmm.
it seems like the people in Eddington largely do like him, because he's been sheriff for quite a while. He does feel very much like he'd get away with anything, and he does actually for quite a while.
Yeah.
And
It's
watching
only
him
until the.
cover it up, not be great at it, but
Mhm.
be good enough at it, frankly, to
Mhm.
where people don't buy or don't think that it's him. Because
Mhm.
the only person that ever finds out that it's him is the
The
Pueblo
Pueblo police officer.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
which is interesting.
Who puts together from the handwriting thing. And I love that when he's just like, because he's just camping out in the in the police building, and he's looking around. He's like, I don't know what I'm doing here. He's never gonna talk to me. And he looks over at the whiteboard and he sees how the campaign or the slogan ideas written on there, and he like, and he just runs away.
Yeah, I love
and,
that moment.
And Joaquin Phoenix like sees him going, and Joaquin Phoenix doesn't know that he has put that
No, of
together.
course not.
He just sees him leaving suddenly, so he's like, "Well, I should probably follow this guy. I
Yeah.
need to know where he's going." But then ultimately that spins into Joaquin framing Michael for these murders, framing him because he spray paints "No Justice, No Peace" on the inside of the Garcia home to sort of blame BLM protesters for this
Yeah,
thing.
I found this purse
And
inside the home. What the heck is going on here?
exactly,
That must mean
exactly.
that's the murderer. They
Mhm.
sniped.
Uh,
Why would the purse be in the home? I guess, but then they have to
But
go
then,
in there
you know-
to spray paint. So
Of course, yeah. But then Michael is framed for all of this, and also at this point, Joaquin has contracted COVID and is doing some great sick acting as
Yeah.
well. Uh,
coughing
I
a
mean,
lot,
and-
doing this with his voice.
yeah,
I do actually wish that catching COVID and people feeling sick and that rising
Mhm.
tensions inherently, I wish they played actually a little more into that for this last act.
Oh,
the
sure.
last act is very isolated. Once we get into like the real action part of it, it's him running through the dark and a lot of the sniper shots and far away people, shadowy figures. But I did feel like the movie was planting with the riot going on, the homeless man that has COVID being there and
Mm-hmm.
coughing on everyone, that there's going to be a little bit more of this was a super spreader event. Everyone is now infected
Okay.
in some way. The streets are more empty because of this. And like,
Mm-hmm.
we're running into people and they're all sweaty, like pretending they don't have COVID. I do think that the movie, it felt like it was establishing, like building up to something like that. And it does, like,
Uh-huh.
no other character explicitly has COVID that I can remember or is even really acting
Yeah,
sick.
yeah.
Um,
I mean, that's fair enough. But ultimately, I think I mean, Ari Aster has a bigger fish to fry at this point in the narrative than
yeah.
like people are sick.
Well,
I think it's just a
yeah,
good thing to sprinkle on top of Joaquin's
yeah, of
experiences for
course.
the last a half hour of this movie is that he is extremely ill and trying to pretend that he's
Yeah,
not.
yeah. He's
Um,
popping some
but
sort of
again,
miscellaneous yellow tablet.
he's taking like Baylor tablets or whatever
Yeah.
the fuck, like multivitamins to
Yeah.
try and get better. Pretty
But
good.
instead of what I was saying,
Hmm.
I think may have for my mental progression how the felt like movie was going. I was
Hmm.
wanting it to build up to tension that might have been more about the sickness and the sickness
Yeah.
impacting his ability to, cover up the tracks or something like that.
Right, right, right.
Instead, we have like a brick through the window, an antagonistic force that just appears out of the fucking sky, which is like
Yes.
Antifa Proud Boys mixture. What the fuck is
Yeah, so
happening?
this is what I love about what Aster does here is that he makes reality the exact type of like right-wing psychosis that many people in this country believe is fact
Yeah,
and
yeah.
was fact
Hmm.
5 years ago. That like billionaire George Soros funded private jets of like super soldiers were landing in small towns all across were landing in cities all across America and like going in, spray painting, vandalizing, causing riots, killing people or whatever. Like
Yeah. Setting
there are
fires.
people setting fires, all this stuff. And Ari Aster's like, okay, yeah, let's put that in my movie then. Let's do that.
Yeah.
Let's actually have a private jet with like a globalist hand grabbing the globe or whatever, with a bunch of people inside with guns. They're doing push-ups. They have the signs and everything like that. You see that and you're like, what was that? Hang on, what was that a second? And then it doesn't come back until Joaquin Phoenix is like embroiled in this where there is a bomb that explodes in the middle of the desert that goes into like gasoline fire writing that says no justice, no peace, and then he is like running around the town. He goes into a gun shop and he has this standoff moment protecting his town against the terrible Antifa soldiers that have invaded. Like it is playing into and making reality the conspiracies that
Yeah.
have been propagated in our lives and for 2 hours in this film, basically. And it's a sort of wish fulfillment, is a sort of fantasy
Yeah.
fulfillment for those kind of people, and then it rug pulls you right at the very end, which is also awesome.
Hmm. The rug pull being the little like postscript, the epilogue of the movie.
The little epilogue,
Yeah.
basically. And we can talk about that in a moment. But what were your thoughts? Because I also think just generally this is a very well directed sequence of the film.
Yeah. No, it's good. I especially like the the lighting of it being dark and lots. There's like a. Did I see a shadow? Did I see someone running like
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
background? And then like all of the like bullet casings flying everywhere. He's got this like giant. I don't know,
Again, it's the
machine
wish
gun of
of
some kind.
he has like 6 guns on him and he's using the biggest gun in the
Yeah,
world, but also he like accidentally shoots the Pueblo officer who is going
dude,
to
he
get him,
tears his
which
leg off.
also is kind of it was also kind of like a wish fulfillment thing because it makes him safe from that thing as well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. So all of this goes down. I think it's a very good sequence. Again, it felt a little out of place for like where I was hoping the movie to go, but like I did
Hmm.
like this chunk of the movie quite a lot. Again, I feel this movie's at its best when it's focused on a couple of key elements that I think are really interesting and play into the Western tropes. Um,
Mm.
the middle chunk of the movie in the town with the protests, with the more politics stuff, I think is the weakest because it is the least focused. It does have the most going on. But when we strip things back down after the murder, and it's more about
Hmm.
his dynamic with with his two deputies and a couple of townspeople, but it's again very focused down on him, and then into
Hmm.
his solo action sequence. I think it's great. I think it's very, very good stuff. And then there's this epilogue, which is that he has been severely disabled by the attack.
Yes, he
And
gets a knife in the head.
yeah, but he survives. He's good.
He
Not really,
lives.
he's there, and he won mayor because he's a hero. But
Right.
really, it's
And
his.
he's ultimately running unopposed.
That is, that's a good point. And look,
Mhm.
he's running opposed, and he's the only one who is alive, not functional, but alive.
Uh-huh.
And it is his mother-in-law, like, puppet controlling him and enacting the will of her conspiracies that she believes upon Eddington and wider politics.
Yeah, but she also like I mean this is what's so perfect is that these people are so like conspiracy minded and but she becomes the government that is controlling people. I mean like Austin Butler's character who we've not really talked about but it's fine. Vernon talks about this is like you have all these conspiracies like you're anti-government or whatever but you're running for mayor ultimately and he's like well no I'm gonna be I serve the people I don't serve the broader government but like that is all these bubble fucking people want is they just want to congregate power and then get rich. I mean, you see like the giant estate that they
Yeah,
live in
yeah,
at the end of the movie, and yeah, she's taught. She brings up like 9/11 conspiracies. Towers don't fall like that. Like in this speech that she's giving, in front of a giant AI deepfake server farm, basically. It was like, you guys should be against this. What the fuck are you talking about? But it's because they're lining their pockets with this money. I mean, anyone who says that Ari Aster is trying to like both sides this thing and like, well, he doesn't bring up Trump or the MAGA movement or whatever. It was like, I'm sorry, is the film too subtle for you? Is
yeah,
that Eddington's issue? Like, obviously, it is what it's about, and it is taking a much harsher knife to one ideology versus another. The worst it has to say about like performative BLM stuff is that those people were kind of annoying and kind of misguided
yeah, yeah,
ultimately.
yeah.
But I also love the payoff of Jake. Is that the kid's name?
Brian?
Brian.
Yeah.
Thank you, Brian. Brian
Oh
who
yeah. He
he
becomes like a
comes out and
Kyle
saves
Rittenhouse
Joaquin.
fucking
It's
social media
it's
influencer.
Yeah, he comes out and he like first person shooter on his phone, saving Joaquin Phoenix from the Antifa soldiers, and then is shown to us in like a sideways TikTok. So I had to like do this in the theater to read everything that was going on. But yeah, becomes like a conservative podcast influencer, like Second Amendment freedom guy, and they photoshopped him with Marjorie Taylor Greene and things like that. It's awesome. It's so funny.
Yeah, yeah. That's a really good moment in the movie.
Hmm.
And then it just kind of ends in this really like, I don't know, in some way. I mean, obviously, it makes sense for the world that they set up in the movie, but in like
Hmm.
the wider script, kind of defeatist. Like, yep, this happened, and now they're in power, and then the movie's gonna
Yes.
end.
Hmm.
Which is fine enough. I think it's a good ending. But yeah, this last chunk is definitely very, very satirical.
Uh-huh.
And covers a lot of ground in a short period of time. Yeah, I like the ending quite a bit.
Mhm. Yeah. Hey, I mean, we talked about it, Tucker. We did. It only took us roughly an hour, but we
Yeah,
talked about the entire plot of Eddington. We did it.
congratulations, everyone.
Um, I mean, I mean, we did. Like I mentioned, we didn't really bring up Austin Butler, who is doing his. I mean, well, that's also a thing at the end of the movie is that Emma Stone has like settled down with Austin Butler, who is a sort of religious conspiracy figure online, and she is having a child with him,
Yeah,
which upsets Joaquin Phoenix as in his vegetative
yeah,
state,
yeah,
basically.
yeah. That plot line
Just
is fine. I think Emma Stone is ultimately a little underutilized. I would have wanted that maybe a little bit more
sure.
explored.
I've heard
But
people say that, and my thing with it is that um I think it's just the character and the fact that Emma
yeah,
Stone like she is an S tier actress. She's one of the most famous actors that we have working right now. Is in that role. If it was a less notable actor or performer, I feel like people wouldn't have that complaint as much. Maybe I
oh,
might be wrong,
I think that's a good
but
point. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, and
But
I think
like you're
actually
like, well, it's
like
Emma Stone.
a
Yeah.
similar complaint can be levied against how much Pedro Pascal is in this movie.
Sure.
I think another part of my frustration / disappointment with this middle chunk of the movie is I was really hoping for more of a push and pull political campaign. Instead we see a couple of moments of Ted Garcia's political goings on,
Home life,
but
yeah.
no, but like him making political.
Oh,
moves.
okay,
Yeah,
gotcha.
but not that much of it. I really liked what they were setting up with like the dynamic between the two of them, but largely Joe is so focused on obviously being sheriff and trying to keep the protests under control, but also running his own campaign. That the screen time of the movie doesn't have enough time to really explore what's going on with Ted. I wish the movie was a little bit more split between the two of them, the two of their perspectives. But at the end of the day, you know, we got what we got. The movie's got its angle. It's very much about Joe Cross in a way that I thought this was going to be a little bit more of an ensemble piece, but it's really just it's a narrative about this guy.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ari Aster has found his muse, and his name is Joaquin Phoenix, dude.
That is so true. That's so true. Well, we did it. We talked about everything in Eddington. Tanner, I am going to give this movie a 7.7 out of 10.
Okay, yeah. I'll go an 8.5. I really like this one. I think it's amongst Ari Aster's best work for me. And again, it is really one that I'd like to rewatch.
Yeah.
I think for the reason that we stated already, and to like have an understanding of where the film is going now. I think it'd be really entertaining to rewatch.
Yeah. Well, thank you everyone for watching. We'll see you next time.